Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second Ask the Expert of 2026. So we're going to focus on mastering reporting today. So we've got our usual faces here. I'm Richard, the Head of Service Management here at Tiger.
And I'm Matt Ringsell. I am the Technical Product Lead here at Tiger.
And as I've said in the chat there, if you've got any questions as we go through anything, please do put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring throughout. I will respond to you. If it's not something we can pick up, we'll come back to you afterwards. But yeah, feel free to ask anything you want. So, welcome to everyone today.
Yep, I think there's a good mix of people that have joined this morning. So, look forward to, sharing what we can with you guys. And, I always like to think that everyone's going to go away and learn something from the session.
Absolutely. Thank you. So just before we get into the main topic today, I just wanted to let everyone know, and we'll send some wider comms out. We've relaunched our Get Started pages. So you'll see, for those that are familiar with it, it's a great repository. It has a huge amount of information, including all of these wonderful Ask the Expert webinars, the historic ones in there. But we've got training videos, manuals. You've got a link to raise a support case, all of our widget library. Everything's on there. We've relaunched it. We've tidied it up. We've made it a bit easier to navigate and use. So I've popped the link in the chat. Please do use that. It's a great source. We also include our release notes in there, for example, if you go into the documentation section, so you can see what's come in the latest releases. But yeah, we're not here to talk about that today. I just thought it's a great mention. It's hot off the press. It's live. So yeah, please do go and have a look around. And it does say on there, if there's anything you think's missing, drop us an email at customersuccess@tiger.io and we'll get it added for you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard. So quickly, we're just going to run through what today's session is going to cover. So we're going to be covering three topics today. We're going to be covering directory. So I'm just going to quickly briefly go over why the directory is important to you, and then what we will go is obviously we'll go and look at this live in Prism. So to understand the directory is sort of the backbone of your accurate reporting, etc. If you go and run a report on a department and it's only got 4 out of the 10 people in the department, the report's only going to reflect that. So what you need to do is make sure your directory is as up to date or as accurate as possible. So what we're going to do today is give you some hints, tips, show you how to be able to, make your directory better where possible. Okay.
And perhaps talk a little bit about the sources.
Yeah, and the sources and how you get it from there. So to understand that the directory controls your dashboards, reports, and underpins the security. And what I mean by that is if I give access to a department, to a department manager, let's say IT, and IT at the moment has 4 people in it, and then you go and add another 10 people into that department, they will automatically get access to those new 10 people that you've granted access to. So you have to be, very aware of this when you're using the directory, that this is underpinning security as well as underpinning, the data that's being included in dashboards, reports, and analytics, etc. So again, when we go through this, it will start to make, more sense.
And I think there's some really strong real life examples. Companies hire contractors, for example, and you may not want other staff to see the information about that contractor, the calls they're making, who they're to, etc. So there is lots of considerations with this, and I think if you think, well, it's not relevant to me, it probably is.
Yeah, and we can look at that. And again, one of the things we could even look at maybe in another Ask the Expert is then using that those examples, if you have more questions.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, we do have an automated way of updating the directory. It's a product we've written called Q, and Q basically goes to your source data and it reflects on a timely period into your directory. So if you add it into your source data, it automatically comes into Tiger Prism on daily, weekly, monthly basis. Okay, and I'll explain this as we go through the demonstration. We're going to look at date assignments. Now, this is a key thing to understand about what a date assignment is, and I'm not going to cover it in detail at the moment, but I will go through date assignments. We'll look at the 3 trees that are available to you and why you've got them. and how to export that data. So if you do need to go and investigate, you can export it as well.
Yeah, and look, for anyone sat thinking when we get into reporting, we need to talk about directory, because without an accurate directory, your reports will not be correct.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that we have this understanding. I mean, look, and this is relevant to dashboards, to analytics, to everything.
It's everything.
So I think Matt used the word underpins, and that's exactly what it does.
So we're going to look at directory first. Then we're going to be moving on to reports and how you get the most out of your report. So I'm going to go through looking at the parameters of each report, understanding which groups, and then looking at ways that we can, get the right data for the right reports by choosing the right group, then the right parameters, etc. Okay, and then how we export that data, how we, get it to people that need that data. Okay.
And one of our previous RC experts, because we're not going to get into it too much today, we did do batch reporting as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
So it's worth, if anyone wants that link, I can find it. I can send it to you. Just pop a note in the chat. But yeah, we're not going to focus on batch reporting today.
No,
it's more complex, but
or scheduling. It's purely run it to screen. If you want to then learn about the scheduling side of things, you can go and look at our previous RC experts about the scheduling side.
Yeah, and if anyone wants that, just say I'll find the link for you and I'll let you know.
And then finally, one part of the software that not many people even look at or don't really go and use. So we're going to look at exports. So for every report that we have on the system, there's an underlying export, and all the export does is it gives you the data in column formats that you can use to upstream to other applications. You can use it then to write stats off the back of it. It may be that you need a specific graph, for example, that isn't available in our application. What you can do is you can use the export function, put it into Excel, and then use Excel to create some nice graphs around the data. Okay, now using it through the reporting engine, because we already put graphics on it and we put headers in and stuff like that, it makes it a little bit harder. But using the export, because it's just clean columns, you can start to then use this data. And again, you can schedule this. So if it's something that you need this data for, and you want it every day SFTP'd off to a developer who's using that data, then export is the way that you can do this as well.
Lovely. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go into the live demo.
Without further ado, just while you load that, Matt, I have gone and looked up the link for the previous session we did on reporting. So if you do want to learn a bit more about exporting, batch reporting, etc., I've just put that link in the chat there. Yeah,
brilliant.
Right, let's start with directory and why it's important then, please.
Yes. So I'm going to look at the directory. So I'm going to start with 3 trees. So why have we got 3 trees? So we have a department, cost center, and what would normally be called a project tree, but we've relabeled this. So I can show you how you can relabel these trees as well. So by default, yours will say departments, cost centers, and project. But again, you can call these whatever you like. They're technically known as tree 1, tree 2, and tree 3. So why would you have 3 trees? What's the point of having 3 trees? Well, when you go into a business, people have different ways of looking at people within a business. So you'll have finance people that will see you as a cost center. So you sit within a cost center, therefore the finance just want to know how much is cost center A spent. Therefore, you can create a tree within Prism that will say cost center, extension, users. Nice and simple. But then you'll have hierarchy managers that can then go from, say, I want everybody in London, I want then everybody on Oxford Street in store A, and I want all of my people. And it's a very different way of looking at it. So we've gone from a very simple, you're all in this cost center here, to a quite,
more
granular tree that you need to go and look at. Okay. Now you can't have both things in the same tree because they're very different. They're a different shape. So you can have different trees to shape your hierarchy. So when you go and choose a report or you choose a dashboard, you can choose one of these 3 trees to reflect your data as you see it. So
and Matt, without getting too technical on this,
Sure.
I'm sat here going 3 trees. How do I know which one? Where do you get the information from?
Yeah. Well, there are two ways basically you can get information into a tree. There is a manual way, which basically means you come into the tree, you come over to the left-hand side and you use these cogs here to add departments, add sites, etc. in here, and you create your hierarchy here. So you create your tree hierarchy, and then from here, you click on a level, and then you click the cog here, and then you can add phones into that level. So you click the plus button, you can then assign all of the phones that are available in your system. And it may be you want to add all of a particular CDR source, and you can add extra columns in here as well to help you filter that. You can use the filter at the top, or you can use the filters on the columns here to choose those users and add them into your tree path.
And if I make this change, I'm doing it for me or I'm doing it for my organisation?
Everybody. So this is your organisation. So when we look at this, this is your organisation. Everybody uses these 3 trees, okay? Now, you may not have access to see the 3 trees. It's an access thing that you can grant access to people to see these. You can grant access to people to edit these trees as well. Or you can grant people not to be able to see these.
And that's a system administrator choice.
Yeah. You can choose whether they can see the tree, edit the tree, or can't see the tree at all.
So I guess as the system administrator, it's really down to, do you want the responsibility of managing this, or do you want people to manage it for you?
Correct, yeah. So I would probably say, though, 95% of our customers use Cube in the background to automate these, okay? You don't want to be sitting here. It's probably okay if you're using a small subsection of your company, but, you know, some of the customers we've got on here that have 20, 30,000 staff members, building trees is probably not going to be a viable solution, right? Okay,
it's a full-time job for our team, that, isn't it?
So what we have in the background is we have Cube running, okay? And what Cube does is it goes to your source data. So this could be something like something as simple as a CSV file, an Excel file. It could be your Active Directory, okay? Or there are, you know, many different sources of information we can go and collect from.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, look, whilst we are excellent at doing this, the easiest choice is an Azure AD link.
Yeah, we can go to Azure AD. It's nice, quick and simple in there, okay? And we can go and pull all that information into here. And what it will then do is on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, however you tell us to, however often you want us to update it, it will go over to your Azure AD as an example and synchronize these departments, levels, etc. in here, and add all the users and the extensions into here as well.
Yeah, and for those that administer, we're talking about OU level. So if you move somebody from one OU to another in your Active Directory, we'll then reflect that in the directory for you, basically. It's like I said, Azure AD is the easiest for us, but flat files, so any AD export we can work with. And most of our customers, just to be clear, we do this daily. We do run a daily Cube run for them, and therefore any changes you made on the previous day, next day, the reports are now accurate.
We can also in here, just to go through, is I'm going to come to the dates in a moment. If people share endpoints, so say for example here I've got extension 2363, you'll see there's a little arrow on the left-hand side. What this means is this endpoint is shared with someone. So where you may have in your Active Directory 2 people that have a job share role, 2363 is the number here, and I can see at the moment the owner of it is Sally, but there's a little expander button here. If I click on this, it will say, it's shared, okay? And it's also shared with Thomas Hughes, okay? So what it is we've gone into your Active Directory, we've seen the extension number appear twice, okay? Therefore, what we go is right, this is the main user. But normally this is done either alphabetically for the first run. There is a way of you doing this, or if they were in there first, we'll keep them, and then if another person comes along, we'll add them as the sharer of that. But that's what the little plus button is. If you're going through here, it just means that phone is shared, and this is then shared with these people here. Okay.
So Matt, we've had a question coming from Mike. So is it possible to use a best of both approach where Cube imports and then we can make manual entries to capture extensions that may exist outside of the source data. Now, I assume, though, we would have to know about the extension because it was coming from the telephony switch or somewhere else anyway, right?
Yeah, so there are ways of doing that. I think what would probably be best is to sort of, because there are two approaches to this. And there is a way that you can put a level in here and not touch it. The other option is that we can get you to provide us a flat file with all those information in, and we can then, we can just combine the two together. So we have very complex diagrams that run in the background where it can take a bit from here, a bit from there, a bit from there, a bit from there, and it tidies it all up, makes it clean and to the best of our ability. And obviously, again, you're reliant on your joiners, movers, and leavers processes in your business, because you may not be in control of that, making sure that that is also up to date as well.
So what we can do is we can reach out to Mike afterwards and just look at the options.
Go through it with them.
Yeah, look, I think your comment there, the flat file is probably the best solution, because we could do an hourly import, but again, we do generally a daily import on flat files as well. Now, you can upload that file to our SFTP server, and as long as the column headers remain the same, you can put whatever data you like in it every day. And it might be you only send us that flat file once every 6 months. It doesn't matter. We will still check every day to see if you've uploaded one.
Yeah.
So that's probably the easiest option with things like that. We load it for you still.
Yeah.
Less chance of things going wrong and things breaking if we build it through Cube still, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So we looked at sort of how the hierarchy works. You can search on the left-hand side here for anything in this window here. When you select these items on the left here, you'll see that the right-hand window will change as well. So when you're going into them, and what this means is it will filter down to everything that's contained within that part of the directory. Okay, so if I go into, say, service management, it filters out. If I go to the top level, it will show me everything that's available in that. Okay. And
again, with giving people access to this directory, we can choose what levels they can see.
Yes.
So it's not super. So if I open up the directory function to someone that only has access to service management, they'll only see service management. It doesn't supersede the inherent permissions that we've set.
No, it would just be, you will see when you log in, you will only see on this screen what you have access to. So admins will see everything. If you restricted the access, you'd only see what you've got.
But to the point, one of the boxes you need to tick is they can see the directory.
Correct. Yes. So there's in the security section we did within the Ask the Expert, it covers that.
I feel like I should go off and find that Ask the Expert as well now.
So I need to go through what the dates mean. Okay, so you'll see over here on the right hand side there are some dates to say, right, this is the dates this person was in this department. Okay, so the way the directory works fully is an endpoint is owned by a department. Okay, then separately an endpoint is owned by an employee. Okay, so they're two separate things. So an endpoint belongs to a department or part of the hierarchy structure. Then an endpoint has an employee or a bunch of shared employees on the side of it. So what this means is you have two dates here. So it says this organization owned this endpoint from this date. So this date here, from the 13th of the 8th, 2025, if I try and run a report on this extension number here, all calls that are made from that endpoint will be assigned to service management, okay? Anything historically before that will be against the previous department. So what is my previous department? So I can click on the endpoint here. It will load up a new tab, and in the assignments, it will come down here and show my history. Okay, so from 2000, 2008 to 2020, I was in service management. Then I moved to sales, development, accounts, and back to service management here. Okay, so this is my history. So if I ran a report for 2025, any calls up to the 16th of January will be against development. Any calls between the 16th of January to the 13th of August would be against accounts. And then the rest of it would go against service management. So if I ran a report on me, I would appear 3 times if I ran it for 2025.
Now we've stored this obviously, but because it's been important in Active Directory.
Correct.
So this isn't somebody's had to manually go in and say Matt has moved, Matt has moved, Matt has moved.
No.
Let's just be clear about that, because I think that's a concern for people, right? How do I know they moved?
Yeah.
You're telling us through the link we've got for your flat file, for your Active Directory.
Yeah. So as you move them in your Active Directory, so I've moved, let's say, when I moved from accounts back to service management on there, so it was changed in Active Directory at 12:30 on the 13th of August. We've synchronized that, and we've then said, right, now Matt's gone from accounts, so we stamp it and go, right, on the 13th of August, he moved from accounts, and he now moved to service management. Yeah. Now, that's great, we understand that, and when we go and run reports, as I said, I'll appear 3 times if I run it for 2025. But what if we've made a mistake and gone, well, actually, Matt moved out of accounts on the 1st of August. How do I go and amend this? How do I tell Tiger that he actually left on the 1st of August? Because I want all the calls from the 1st of August onwards to service management. So there are 2 ways to do this. You can do it in the assignment screen here. You can come onto the edit mode at the top here, and you can adjust all of the dates here, okay? And go, right, I want to adjust it all and go, right, from this date, I want him to here, and then I change the 2 dates, and then I click save. Or if you want to do this on a bit of a larger scale against lots of people, maybe whole departments, etc., there are ways of clicking on cogs and using our backdating function. And what that will mean is anything that is beyond that date, you can backdate to a certain date here, or you can use our selector function at the top here, and you can tick all the endpoints that you want to adjust. So I'm going to go and adjust mine here, tick mine, and I can then click the backdate button. Okay, so I can say, right, well, I want to backdate this date here to the 1st of August. So I click the backdate button, I go, right, actually I want that back to the 1st of August at midnight. And then I can do the backdate both, because we want to backdate both parts of the assignment for here. And I click confirm, and that will then backdate me here.
And that's instant, is it? Or it has to go and do any rework in the background?
It does do work in the background, but it takes a few milliseconds to go off and do. Obviously, people that
I think milliseconds we can call instant, Matt, can't we?
If you've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of end users, then it can take
minutes,
seconds.
Maybe,
But now you see I've done the backdate on the screen here. You see now it's reflected that on this screen. So rather than me having to click dates and stuff, doing the backdate sometimes is quicker on this screen here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you say, you can do it more widely there.
Yeah, you can do it more widely. It may be that I moved 20 people on that day. So what I can do is select all of my 20 users here and use the backdate function. Backdate.
And of course, this is something you'd need if for example, you've got a lag in your Active Directory being updated.
Yep.
Manager maybe didn't tell anyone, they've now moved to a new cost center or a new department, or this is what this is great for, right?
100%. And as I said, you can also do it at whole level, so you can use these cogs here to do full backdates of full departments.
Yeah.
But please be cautious of this, that when you do this, it is you can't bring that history back once you do it. Okay, so just be a little bit cautious when you are using these cogs to do full backdates of directories.
Yeah.
Any questions? Come back to the support team. We are more than happy to assist you in trying to understand this.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we talked about is, well, how did I call this tree? So at the moment, this tree here we're looking at, is called departments, right? What if I want to rename it? So under my settings, I have the ability to come into trees, and I have the ability to come into here and rename these trees. Again, though, to be very clear on this will rename it for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you rename this to whatever you want it to be, it will rename it everywhere in the software.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if we then get a feed we run in Cube, is it going to change the name back again?
The tree is the tree name, and it's only controlled here by you in your system. Okay. Yeah. So you can call this, rather than departments, maybe it is cost centers for your departments, and you can put in whatever you want in here as well. You can also rename these tree levels. So when we look back here at, on the other screen, you saw we have different trees, and here you can also rename these tree levels. So it may be level 1 is definitely, it's always going to be your parent organization. You never need to change that because that's what it will always be. But it may be the second level is not the site. So in our instance, this is incorrect because it's actually a department, it's not a site. But you can come in here, you can reorganize this by coming in and editing. You can give it a different name, even change the icons if you want to. If it's something specific that you want to go and put in there, you can even change the icons as well. So when you go back and look, it
makes more sense. Yeah, because I think with a lot of organisations, particularly if it's multiple companies under one branch, that's probably company name, that second.
Correct. Yeah, it could be division as well. That's you know, lots of companies have different divisions within their organisation. So again, just making it more appropriate to your company. So things in here, I'm not adding a site. It comes up and it will say add department or add division.
It just makes sense, right? When you're trying to administrate something, you want terms that are familiar to you.
Correct. Yes. Because people that sometimes don't call them cost centers even. So
no, and it can be easier, obviously, if you're onboarding somebody new into using Prism, to have the right terminology in there can make a difference.
Yeah, because some people I talk to call them budget areas and stuff. So it's just getting your terminology right from that perspective.
All right, look, we could spend a lot of time talking about directories. We know how important they are. I've popped the link in there where we've talked about directories and things before. Let's get a look at some reporting though, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to come into the report. So I'm going to come to explain quickly. There are different report sets for your different sources. Okay, so if you are a telephony user, so if you're using a PABX, you will be using the telephony reports. If you're using Microsoft Teams, it's the Teams reports. WebEx, the WebEx reports, Zoom reports. Telephony also covers off bill imports, etc. as well. So just to be clear, there are subsections here. So when we go and talk about the reports, you'll generally find that the reports are available in different subsections as well. But I'm going to start with telephony here. And on your front screen here, you have the ability to put your favorites. Okay, so some people don't know this. When you log on, you'll get the little plus button here, or you can click the edit button in here, and you can add your favorite report. So if it's a report that you run regularly, okay, you can come in here. So I'm going to choose my call information reports, something I run regularly here. I click confirm. It's now added it over here, and you can reorder these as well, put them in any order that you want. I want the call detail on the left, click save, and it's now available. So rather than me having to come to my menu in the left here and going, right, I want to go into my incoming, hunt through, find my report app, I can now just quickly click on this.
And this is personal to your Prism profile. So every single user of Prism can have their own.
Have their own subset.
Yeah.
So putting your favorites in there, great. It just saves a couple of extra clicks to get to where you need to be. So let's start with a call information report. This is probably a good one to start because the parameters here cover most of the ones that are going to be on all the other screens as well. So let's go through step by step what each parameter does. So the first section is a from and to date. You can choose your calendars to select a definitive date set here. If you don't want a definitive date set, you can use our predefined dates by clicking on the dates button here.
Very analytics, that one, isn't it? Just last month, last year.
Choose your date range you're looking for, okay? Now, it could be that you go, right, I want February's, and I click on February's and I go, well, actually, no, I want January's as well. and you can then come back and you can add into January here as well. Okay, but again, you've predefined dates, just predefine the to and from calendars. Now, the next section here, weekday. So what does this do? Well, if you don't set it, i.e. you don't click any of it, it will select every day. Or you can say, I want to see just Monday to Friday.
So you're excluding data though,
Yeah.
by choosing that. I think that's worth noting, right?
Yeah, you are excluding any calls that are made on a Sunday and a Saturday, okay? Through the date period. So if I've got 10 Saturdays and 10 Sundays in that date period I've selected, they will not be included.
I get that there's a need for that, because actually you might be looking, you might be looking for numbers that are only answered between 9 and 5 each day, correct, Monday to Friday. So
yeah, that's there. And it could be the opposite way around as well. Who's in my office Sunday and Saturdays? Go and give me all of the calls that are made on those days.
Or dare I say, who's using my technology on a Saturday or a Sunday?
Yeah. So if you don't set anything, it will assume you want everything. Okay, so we have to be clear here on the parameters. If you don't set something, it's going to assume you want everything. Okay, so you don't need to come in here and tick all the boxes for stuff. If you don't set it, it's going to choose everything for you.
Default will be all.
Yeah.
Nice and simple.
Yeah. Time zones. Now, this is for in reflection of what time zone you want this report to be in. So if you're running it for somebody in New York, for example, if you leave it in Dublin time here, the calls, so the itemized calls, and I'll show you the difference. If I, what I'm going to do is just for speed, I'm going to choose yesterday.
Because we load all calls as UTC, right?
Correct. Everything in our system is loaded as UTC.
Which is basically GMT.
Yeah. Yeah. So here you'll see that the call at the moment, that top call there is 4:27. Okay. If I change this to a different one, let's change it to Beijing time, for example, and run it. That time will then be reflected to be in Beijing time at 23:27. Okay, so when you're running reports, you need to be clear on what numbers or what date time zones you're running in reflection to. Okay.
And this is obviously, I think, more important for if you're managing reports and get a request to schedule a report. Once this is done once and you've scheduled it, it's going to remember this information, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah, that's correct. So that's what you just need to keep in mind is the time zones here. Okay, so again, you choose your dates, choose your time zones, and you can then choose specific times. So going back to Richard's example, do you want calls only to show between 9 and 5:30, so or 9 and
5, yeah, 9 to 5.
9 to oh, let's go to 9 to 5. Sorry, again 9 to 5, right? So do you want it between 9 and 5, or do you not want it between 9 and 5? Right? So you again,
looking it out of hours.
Looking stuff out of hours. Who's ringing us outside? Are we getting any business outside of 9 to 5 that will require us to expand our opening hours? Okay, so it's using that type of data there to go, right, so, you know, I'm seeing we're getting 30 calls after 5 o'clock. Is it worth just expanding our opening hours on a trial basis to 5:30 to see whether, you know, business improves? So you can use those as well. So not between, or between.
And look, we're not here to talk about alerts today, but alerts is another great area of the system where actually you could set up an alert to say we're receiving calls in outside of our operating hours.
Yeah.
Obviously, a report shows it wonderfully as well, but it's just something to consider, isn't it? If that sort of triggers with people that, oh yeah, actually that's a good point.
Yeah. So the next one is a CDR source. So this is looking at your data source where you're getting information from. Again, if you don't set this, it will assume you want all, okay? So normally you wouldn't set these here, but you can do if you want to. So it could be you want all calls from a particular source and you can come and select them in here.
Yeah, I'm sure there are examples where you would want a specific source. You might have a third party delivering a telephony service to you or something, and that's one source, and you might just want to look at that, or
normally on those ones you would, but again, when you go into each section, so if I go into Zoom, for example, it will automatically just choose my Zoom sources as well. Okay. So trees and directory items. So back to where we were. So we can choose which tree we want to run this in reflection to. So this is where, having multiple trees allows you to look at different ways of breaking down the data. So I'm going to stick with my department tree, and I'm going to come into my directory items. Now, from here, you can choose a department to run a report on by coming in here and ticking the box. And it will then add that department and only show me calls for that department.
Again, if you're setting up reports for managers or heads of department, perfect, right?
Yeah, and you can search as well. If you can't remember what department they're in, you can do a search for their name. It will go and find them, and you can scroll back up and go, oh yeah, he's in that department. Okay, we find that a lot. It's sometimes difficult to find them, so you have got a search facility here as well. Now, one thing you can also do in here, so when you're looking at your directory items, there is a different way of looking at this. So this is looking at it from a hierarchical point of view. So I'm going in, I'm choosing my departments, my users, etc. in here. But what if I don't want that? What if my request is I want to run a report on extension 1234, for example? Well, you have two tabs. So you have the tree option, or you have the endpoints, right? And what the endpoints does over here is gives you some extra columns to filter on. So you can come in here and you can filter on service management again. So I can bring up that, I can filter on that, and it will bring me all of my service management endpoints that are available to me. And then what I can do from here is I can then go and choose, I want to run it on that endpoint there, okay? So I can choose the endpoints then, or multiple endpoints. So I can come and select more than one if I want to. So rather than filtering on a whole department, actually I only want these extension numbers here from that department. Or again, you may not do it by department. You may just want to, search for a couple of extensions here. Okay.
I think there's good examples for that where you might have a department that is external facing, but not all of the staff in it actually are in a hunt group, for example, receiving customer calls.
Yeah.
So you might not be particularly interested in those that don't actually receive customer calls.
Yeah. So you can come in here, you could find that, and then just select the endpoints that you want to on the report. Okay. So you've got the tree tab and the endpoint tab here. Okay. And as I said, they're very different. The tree will select everything in that group. The endpoints will allow you to specifically go and pick the endpoints you want from the tree.
I think it's worth noting that in both examples here, you can have different people from different departments. You can have different departments from different organisational areas.
You can even go, I want these endpoints and I want consulting as well. You can mix and match, right? And you've got the bits over here that it's going to tell you what it's going to.
Yeah, you can pick 3 random people from anywhere in the organisation. I think it's worth noting.
Yeah, you can mix and match on here. So once you've selected your items, you click OK, and then obviously you can generate the reports on that data. On each report, though, past this point, there'll be some sort of individual ones. So there is a rate type, so you can run this data set on cost, wholesale, and retail. So to explain what this is, the cost is the cost of the call, what you are paying for that call. So when it goes across your carrier, what have I paid for it? The wholesale and retail is all based around, well, what do I want to charge my department for that call? What do I want to charge my users for those calls? As an example, in some of our NHS sites, for example, within a hospital, we've all been in there. You've seen a WH Smith, you've seen in our local one. Even had a Burger King in our local one. So
other coffee and fast food places are available.
Yeah. So what they do is they rent out their phones to these people. So what they can do is uplift it. So this is where the cost here is that they pay maybe 10 pence per minute. but they're charging 50p a minute because they need to recover costs internally. So that's what this is here. So when you run a report, you can choose one of these. How many items do you want on the report? And again, this is custom on different reports, won't always have this one, but how many items do you want? Let's say 10. Now, because I've selected 10, I can choose on this report which direction I want, so the incoming, outgoing, etc. And again, not selecting means it will assume you want all.
And look, this is a good example, whereas if you're talking about that recharge, you might only be interested in outgoing
calls. Yeah, exactly. So you would go, right, I'm really only interested in outgoing calls for that one, okay? And when you do set it, it does tell you here that you have selected something, okay? So you know that you are filtering on that part. Maybe you want to look at all the outcomes. So again, I'm only interested in connected calls. I don't really care about anything that's not connected. So I only want my connected calls as well. So I'm looking at sending a bit out to someone for their calls. You have initiating and terminating reasons. Again, on the Get Started page, there's a full document explaining what an initiating and a terminating reason is. Essentially, it's why it comes to your phone. So normal means that, for example, you picked up the handset. That's a normal, okay? Or it could be you picked up your handset and did a group pickup from here. Or somebody transferred it to your phone, it was redirected to your phone, etc. So these are just all the different initiating reasons to your phone and why it left your phone as well. So it could be you want to see all calls that went to voicemail, for example. So you can go over here and choose voicemail, okay?
Of course, in this scenario, we're talking about this billing example, so you'd probably want to, you probably don't want to tick anything there.
No, in this example, we'll just go, we don't really know how it got to them, where we go to them, we just want everything, okay? Now, this is a very important part here, to use the charge party. So what is a charge party? How does it work? How does it sit in the reports? So a charge party allows you to look at who is going to pay for the call. So let's use an example. My phone is on divert to my mobile, okay? Richard called my phone. What will happen is in some instances, it will look like Richard rang my mobile, okay? So when you look at the call, it will be an outgoing call from Richard to my mobile. But Richard doesn't know that I've diverted my phone to here. So what happens is in the data is it has this thing called charge party. So in the CDR records, we know that I've been diverted across, or we've diverted him, so I should pay for that call, okay, not Richard. And that's what the charge party does, is it reflects on who should be paying for that call there. You have these additional columns where you can add on, so for example, transfer columns. So if a call was transferred, you can add those on, the charge columns and the response columns in this report here. And again, each one has a different setting here. You can then sort on this as well, so you can come in here and sort your columns, and you can also sort by ascending and descending. So, as I said, this was a very good report because it covers most of the parameters. There's only one slight different one that we would look at, which is on the incoming answer performance ones. So if you're looking at incoming reports, there is the ability as well to pick the wrong report, that one here, to look at hunt groups, okay? So if you're looking at wanting to run a report on a hunt group, again, it's the same logic as what we've looked at. You just select it and you choose your hunt group to run a report on, okay?
I think it is worth noting though, that other report you went into, obviously, because that was another incoming report, you can start excluding data by it had to ring for 20 seconds before I want to see it as an abandoned call.
Yes, so you can set your levels and stuff like that. Now, if we were to go for every single report here, we'd be here all day, but it gives you an idea of how it works. The only difference between the one we looked at before and some of the other reports, now you'll see this report here doesn't have the ability to break down what you want to see on a report. So you'll see this one here, when you've got a selector and you don't have the levels at the top here, it means it's just going to show you what you've selected.
Yeah.
On other reports, so for example, if I come into my management and the departmental call summary report, there is a slight difference in your tree pickers. in the fact that you can break these down by levels. Okay, so what do these actually mean? What do these levels mean? So I'm going to run a report on everything, and I'm going to say break this down by level 1. Okay, so if I click OK to this, in my report, I'm going to get one row of data, which is Tiger, and a total for everything. Okay, there it is. Now, what if I want to break that down a little bit more? I can come into my directory items, and I can break this down by level 2. Now, I don't want level 1. I don't care about our total from here, so I can unselect this. I want it by level 2. I will now run that report. So I've only changed the selector there to level 2. It's going to now give me a row for every single department that's got calls. So I've got sales and my unknown department. That's great. I've got what I need here. I don't have everybody in here. Just, need to send that to the finance director just to give them what we spent. Okay. But then my manager goes to me, well, actually, no, I want to see all my users in there. So I can come in here. I can go, right, I want level 2 and I want level 3, which is where my users sit at the moment. And again, depending on your tree, depends on which level you select. But you come in here and you can keep selecting till the report looks like what you want to see. So now I'm going to get the department and all of my users here.
Now, if you go back into the selector and expand Tiger down as well,
yeah,
I think this is the other thing to note. We've talked about this. You might not want all of Tiger. You might want a per department report.
Yeah, so you can come in here and just choose a couple of departments as well if you wish.
Yeah, or as I say, more likely, particularly in bigger organisations, you don't want finance necessarily seeing what sales did and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be the whole company, is my point.
No, you can select level, but it shows how this sits together here. And the other thing that you can add on as well, because Amy may have 5 or 6 different endpoints, so she may have a mobile in Tiger, she may have her Teams, her Zoom, her WebEx, all under her here. You can as well over here have the ability to show all of her endpoints, because at the moment what it will do is it amalgamates them all into Amy. Okay, yeah. So you just get a row for Amy, and it doesn't matter which device is made her calls on. But I can say actually what I want to see is her endpoints as well. And what this will do then is show you the person and then the endpoints that sit below them. Okay. Well, live demos, right?
Well, I'm assuming that's because she's only got one endpoint.
Yeah, and no, it should come up. Let me try.
And we're only looking at today as well. Perhaps try a bigger data
range. So let's try a bigger data range. So let's choose the director items again. We know sales have made some calls, so let's go and choose the sales team then. Let's choose level 2 and level 3 again. And show the endpoints, yes. And let's go and choose this month, for example, over here, and then generate. And then hopefully we should then see, yeah, there you go. So over here, unspecified, you can then see the endpoints. You can then see Amy and then see the endpoints underneath them as well. So again, if a user has more than one endpoint and you want to see all the endpoints, you can then also turn that on and it will break it down even further for you. Yeah. Okay.
And I guess that's handy because obviously things like mobiles and Teams calls and sort of telephony switches have different costs.
Correct.
So, yeah. So you might look at this and go, well, it costs me 50p a minute every time they phone from that device, whereas that device is significant. So you could use it to identify, please stop using your mobile. We have a much cheaper service you can use.
Yeah. So,
okay.
We had a question that came in from somebody that asked about getting things like zero usage reports, etc. And how do we look for users that aren't in our directory? Okay, so there are two pre-built reports that are available within the system. So we have an unknown endpoints report. Okay, so the unknown endpoints report gives you a list, so you can run this over a date range. So what this will do is give you a list of endpoints that have generated calls, and it'll tell you how many calls, how much they spent, etc. And again, using your parameters, you can sort this by roles and etc. from here. So what these are a set of endpoints that are not in your tree. So again, this is tree dependent again. That that have generated calls. Therefore, if I went to go and run a report or a dashboard, this number is not included in my data set. So I need to try and get that in my data set, either by, again, finding out who owns that number and adding that number into my source directory, Azure, wherever it may be, okay, or providing Tiger a list of numbers, or if you're manually maintaining it, going and adding them in here, okay? So running these unknown endpoint reports is quite important, that you make sure that you're capturing all of your endpoints within your system. So this report is telling you who isn't in your tree.
Yeah, and I think that goes back actually quite nicely to the question we had from Mike around, can we have this mix?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, really what we want to be doing is finding out who they belong to,
Yeah.
importing a CSV or a like, so that there's a name allocated to them.
Yeah, and again, looking at, some of these are quite high volumes and stuff like that. So we want to be having this data included in here. So the unknown endpoints goes and looks at endpoints that have generated data that aren't in your tree that you've selected over here, okay? On every or other source as well, there is this zero usage endpoints, okay? Now, you would not want to run a zero usage endpoint over a day, okay? You'll probably find that in a day range, right? If I run that now for today, my zero usage, I'm going to get loads of things that haven't generated any data, okay? Now, if I run this over a longer period, that list will shrink. So there's 8 pages at the moment.
Run it for this year, I suppose.
Yeah, run it for this year. Generate that should shrink down quite a lot. There you go. So it's lost 3 pages already, okay? And this is purely on the fact that it's gone over a longer period. We want to go and look at these, data sets over a longer period.
Yeah.
Now,
and we get a lot of questions about this. A lot of people doing migrations, either from an older telephony switch to Teams, or even a newer telephony switch to another telephony switch. Yeah. This is fantastic because it's like, how many extensions do you actually need to buy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And this is it. This is where you're going to get all of your zero usage for that haven't used it over a day range. Now, what you do need to be very careful of, if these are lift phones, these are critical phones, go and check. Don't just disconnect them, just double check. What you don't want to do is go, well, the lift phone hasn't been used for 6 months, and then you disconnect it, okay? So
and then it breaks down that.
And then it breaks, down that. So, we are giving you the information to go and action it, okay? We're not telling you to go and disconnect phones at this point, okay? So take that as, it's a call to action to go and, potentially look at it and go, right, well, that's no longer needed. Yeah. I'm going to remove it from my source information, so from AD, because I don't have it anymore, and I can remove it from my phone system and free up the license.
And I guess it depends on your licensing model. It depends on your support model. You might have a third party that you're paying per extension, for example. There's absolutely value in running this and reducing the volume, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so the last and final part that we're going to look at is exports. So what is an export, okay? An export basically does exactly the same as what we've just done on the screen. So if I go and choose the exact same thing, I go to my detail, my call information here, my parameters are exactly the same, okay? The difference being between what we looked at before and what we're going to look at now is when I click execute, what I'm going to end up with is a load of columns of data, okay? So rather than having a pretty document, organized document, what I've got now is a set of data. So like my ring time is now in milliseconds here, my talk time is in milliseconds. It's
very much more like it's ready for export to a CSV, Matt.
It is, and the data then becomes available that we can then export. So we then come up here, hence why it's called exports. We can then export it to a CSV or an Excel document. And once we've got that, we can then manipulate it. So if I try to give Excel talk time and it's pre-configured as hours, minutes, seconds, we all know it's hard. You've got to then convert it, whereas I've got it now in milliseconds here, okay? I could do maths on it much quicker. And then I can convert the column myself to hours, minutes, seconds, or days, months. So when you're thinking about upstreaming this data, Power BI may be something that you may be wanting to look at this data set from. Okay, using the exports allow you to take the data in an unformatted way that you can then upstream into a third-party application and use it. And again, these can be scheduled, right? So maybe you schedule the report to go to the end user, and you schedule the export to come to the developers that they can ingest that information.
We can schedule these to deliver via email or to a file location.
We can email, yes, and we can export to a SFTP server. So this depends on where you are. So if you're a hosted customer with Tiger in our cloud, we can deliver this to an SFTP server back on your on-premise system somewhere. You set up an SFTP server, we can deliver that file on an hourly, daily, weekly, monthly basis, however you want it.
Yeah.
If you're on-premise, we can connect to a UNC path and drop it somewhere as well.
But the reason I ask, you mentioned Power BI. Obviously, Power BI can go and look for a source if you've located it somewhere, and you can schedule Power BI as well. So it might be that you schedule the export from here, Power BI then goes and picks it up, you build your Power BI, runs it, done.
Yeah.
I think the other thing with exports that's worth considering, these are great as evidential files.
Yeah.
So if you've got somebody saying, well, prove your data's right.
Mm-hmm. There you go. This is your underlying data, and away you go. So again, exports takes the if you've got the report and you've run the report, you've gone, great, but I need to make pretty graphics from it and stuff like that. Use the export side of things, because it just makes your life so much easier to manipulate that data.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Thank you, Matt. That takes us to time. So I've just popped in the chat the link for our next Ask the Experts, which is on the 15th of July. So as always, if there's anything you'd like to see, we've got the theme there. If there's anything you'd like to see added to that, let us know. We will absolutely try and accommodate any additional topics into those sessions as well. When you exit the webinar shortly, you'll be given a little survey. We love hearing your feedback. If there's any topics that you want to hear about, that you want us to include, please do leave the feedback in there for us, and we will absolutely schedule it into a webinar for you. And again, you've got our details. You've got the customer success at tiger.io. If there's anything we can help you with, do drop us a message. Do get in touch with us, and absolutely we'll deliver things where we can for you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time and attendance today. Have a good day all.
Bye.